The summer air hung heavy with the scent of charcoal and desperation. I stood on our porch, the kind with chipped white paint and a creaky swing, watching my husband, Jamal, fire up the old Weber grill. The sizzle of marinated ribs hit the grates, a sound like a whispered promise of a good evening. But in our cookie-cutter suburban hell, peace was a fleeting guest. Across the street, Karen's blinds twitched. I knew that twitch. It was the prelude to war. Karen, our HOA's self-appointed queen, had been gunning for us since we moved in. Our mailbox was too blue, our lawn too wild, our very existence too much for her pristine vision of Willow Creek Lane. Today, it was the barbecue. Jamal, sweat beading on his brow, laughed as he flipped the ribs, oblivious to the storm brewing behind those blinds. I wasn't. My stomach knotted, the kind of knot you get when you know something's about to go sideways. She came striding across the street, her flip-flops slapping the pavement like tiny gunshots. Her voice, sharp as a razor, cut through the hum of cicadas. Jamal, you know the homeowners association rules. No open flames after 6 p.m. It was 5:58. I checked my phone, my fingers trembling. Jamal turned, his smile fading, the tongs in his hand suddenly looking like a weapon he didn't want to wield. Karen, it's just a barbecue. We're within the rules, he said, his voice steady but laced with the exhaustion of a man who'd fought this battle too many times. She didn't hear him, or didn't want to. Her face, flushed red under her visor, twisted into a sneer. You people always think you're above the rules. She spat, the words landing like a punch. My breath caught. You people. The air felt thicker, heavier, like it was pressing down on my chest. Jamal's jaw tightened, but he didn't bite back. Not yet. I wanted to scream, to tell her to shove her rules where the sun didn't shine, but my voice stayed trapped, a caged bird fluttering in my throat. Then came the unexpected. Mrs. Delgado, our elderly neighbor, shuffled out of her house, her cane tapping a slow rhythm on the concrete. She was a ghost in this neighborhood, rarely seen, always quiet, her windows dark most nights. But now, her eyes, sharp as a hawk's, locked onto Karen. Leave them be, Karen, she said, her voice low, almost a growl. You've been hounding these folks since they got here. Enough. The street went silent, even the cicadas holding their breath. Karen's mouth opened, then closed, like a fish gasping on dry land. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Mrs. Delgado, of all people, stepping into the ring. But Karen wasn't one to back down. She wheeled on Mrs. Delgado, her finger jabbing the air. You stay out of this, Rosa. This is homeowners association business. My heart sank. Rosa Delgado didn't deserve this. She was 78, her hands gnarled from years of gardening, her backyard a jungle of roses that Karen had once tried to have removed for violating aesthetic standards. Rosa just stared, unblinking, and said, You don't own this street, Karen. You just think you do. The words hung there, heavy, true, and sharp. Jamal, sensing the tension spiking, tried to defuse it. Look, Karen, I'll turn the grill off in 10 minutes. Let's just... But she cut him off, her voice rising to a shriek. I'm calling the board. I'm calling the cops. She stormed back to her house, her phone already in hand, her flip-flops slapping louder now. A war drum. I felt the world tilt, my hands clenching the porch railing so hard my knuckles ached. Jamal looked at me, his eyes soft but burning with something I hadn't seen in a while. Defiance. Inside, we tried to salvage the evening. The ribs sat cooling, their smoky aroma now a faint ghost in the kitchen. Our daughter, Lila, sat at the table, her crayons paused mid-scribble. Why's that lady so mad? Mommy? She asked, her voice small. I didn't have an answer, not one that wouldn't break her 6-year-old heart. Jamal ruffled her hair, forcing a smile. Some people just don't like ribs, baby girl. But his voice cracked, and I saw the weight of it all settle on his shoulders. Then, the doorbell rang. Sharp, insistent, like a hammer on an anvil. My heart leapt into my throat. I opened the door to find not the cops, but Tommy, the teenage son of Karen's next-door neighbor. His skateboard was tucked under his arm, his hoodie smelling faintly of weed and rebellion. "Yo, Mrs. Carter," he said, his voice low, conspiratorial. "I heard what went down. Karen's been on my mom's case too. I got an idea." My eyebrows shot up. Tommy wasn't exactly the hero type, but the glint in his eye told me he was up to something. He leaned in, whispering, "She's got that fancy patio set out back, right? Hates smoke, hates mess. What if?" He trailed off, grinning. I should have stopped him. I should have said no. But the part of me that was done with Karen's tyranny, done with her smug superiority nodded. "Do what you gotta do, Tommy," I whispered back, my voice shaking with something between fear and thrill. An hour later, the neighborhood was dark, the streetlights casting long shadows. Jamal and I sat on the porch, the air cooler now, the ribs long forgotten. Then it started a faint plume of smoke curling up from Karen's backyard. Not our grill. Not our fault. Tommy had snuck into the alley behind her house, lit a pile of damp leaves he'd scavenged, and let the wind do the rest. The smoke, thick and acrid, drifted straight into Karen's pristine yard, coating her wicker furniture, her string lights, her perfect little world in a haze of gray. We heard her before we saw her. A scream, high and panicked, cut through the night. Karen burst out her back door, coughing, waving her arms like she could shoo the smoke away. "Who did this?" she shrieked, her voice cracking. She spun toward our house, her eyes wild, but then she stopped. Her knees buckled, and she hit the ground, her visor tumbling into the grass. I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth. Jamal was already halfway across the street, his paramedic instincts kicking in. "Call 911, he shouted, kneeling beside her. The ambulance came quickly, lights flashing, sirens wailing. Karen was fine, just fainted from the shock and the smoke, they said. But as they loaded her onto the stretcher, her eyes met mine. For the first time, there was no venom, no superiority, just fear. And maybe, just maybe, a flicker of regret. Jamal came back to me, his face slick with sweat, his hands still trembling from checking her pulse. "She's okay," he said, but his voice was heavy, like he wasn't sure if he was relieved or disappointed. The next morning, the neighborhood buzzed. Word of Karen's collapse spread faster than the smoke had. Mrs. Delgado brought us a tray of empanadas, her eyes twinkling with something like pride. Tommy skated by, giving me a subtle nod, his secret safe with us. The Homeowners Association board sent an email, a bland apology about misunderstandings, and a promise to review the grilling rules. But Karen didn't show her face for weeks. Her blinds stayed shut, her yard untouched, the smoke stains lingering on her patio like a badge of defeat. We fired up the grill again that weekend. The ribs sizzled, the air filled with the sweet tang of barbecue sauce and the laughter of neighbors who stopped by, drawn by the smell and the story. Lila danced around the yard, her crayons forgotten, her giggles a melody of freedom. Jamal pulled me close, his breath warm against my ear. "We're not just surviving here, babe," he whispered. "We're living." And in that moment, under the wide, open sky, with the smoke of our victory lingering in the air, I knew we'd won more than a fight with Karen. We'd reclaimed our place, our joy, our right to exist unapologetically. The world didn't bend for people like Karen, it bent for people like us, who stood their ground, who fought with fire and heart, and who refused to let their light be dimmed.